my name is Rose. I was a Jehovah's Witness for over 30 years. I served as an auxiliary pioneer, and I was eldest daughter. I was a born-in. My grandmother became a Jehovah's Witness when my mother was about 4 years old, so she pretty much grew up in it all her life as well. My dad was a German immigrant, and he befriended a Jehovah's Witness once he just arrived in Canada, and he knew nobody. He barely didn't know the language. So the Jehovah's Witness took him in, and later on he got baptized, and I was born. My parents got married in 1964, and I was born in 1965. My parents were very much into the religion. We were those ones that were always at the meeting, always in field service. And for myself, I never, I didn't have your morning cartoons. Basically, our meeting was always at 10 o'clock. So we never had the afternoon meeting. So by the time I was like 12, I was burned out. Like I literally had not had enough sleep for years. And there was no Christmases, there was no birthdays, there was, for my family, my dad was pretty much an elder for most part of my life. His activities with the religion and his work kept him away from the family. So I felt like I was a spiritual orphan. My dad wasn't exactly the most pleasant man. I mean, he'd had a rough life growing up in Germany and in Berlin during the war. And it showed in his parenting skills, or lack thereof. And then given the spare the rod, spoil the child situation, I was, every meeting, I had attention deficit problems. They didn't know those things back then, and couldn't sit still in the meeting. So every meeting, I would get spanked. They one time asked me when I was like 2 years old, I kind of talked a little bit earlier, like early talker, and they asked me why I go to meetings. And I'm sure they were expecting, me to say, because I love Jehovah. I said to get a spanking. They thought that was funny. So, in fact, at some point along the way, at our first Kingdom Hall, the one that I was born into, they were spanking me outside, and the neighbors phoned and told them that they were going to report if they saw this happen again. And so then I was taken down into the basement of the Kingdom Hall, and I just was not able to sit through a meeting 2 hours. Back in those days, it was 2 hours on a Thursday night, and my father did the book study, and our book study was at 8 o'clock. So it went from 8 to 9. Of course, by the time we got home, it was like 10 o'clock. And then up again in the morning for school. Then comes Saturday, you're up at 7 in the morning to get ready for field service. Then up the next morning for the Sunday meeting, another 2 hours, and then out in the service again in the afternoon. It was a rigid schedule, being a Jehovah's Witness. Very rigid schedule.
Yeah. So did you have any friends in the congregation?
My congregation didn't really have a whole lot of kids. There was a few, one specifically, but Pretty much I was on my own. There was kids younger than me, like my brother's age. My brother's 2 years younger. But for my age group, there was very few.
And could you make friends with school friends, maybe?
No, not unless you were bringing them to the Kingdom Hall. And I have still friends on my Facebook today who will laugh and say, "Remember that time you made me go to the meeting and you tried to convert me, and now you're talking against it." So it's kind of a nice feeling to realize that you didn't drag them in. It didn't work.
Do you feel like you got along more with your school friends over the kids in the congregation, or?
I was an outcast everywhere. In the Kingdom Hall, at school, I was the kid that was Jehovah's Witness kid with braces and glasses, and yeah, it was there was like plays and stuff that the school would do that I wouldn't be allowed to join in. Even like there was this one time there was a Tom Sawyer. We were doing Tom Sawyer. I didn't see anything wrong with doing a play of Tom Sawyer, but it just happened to land at Christmas time. So I was pleading. I wanted to do it so bad. My mom said no, and yeah, it kind of left a little bad taste in my mouth because I feel like what would have been so wrong with but you're spending time with worldly people. I got baptized at just at 16. I think it was 16. I knew at the time I wasn't ready. But everybody else around you is getting baptized, and it just seemed like the next step that you had to do. And I actually was physically ill the day that I got baptized, and it was one of my biggest mistakes in my entire life was getting baptized. It closes the door to everything else. Like they can't. I mean, I guess it's different nowadays because they're targeting people who aren't baptized as well as people who are baptized. But back then, if you didn't get baptized, there was some leeway. Once you were baptized, it was like you did something wrong, and you could lose your whole family. And at 16, I mean, I know some kids are getting baptized at 10, 11 years old now, but even at 16, it's not a decision that you're ready to make.
So after you got baptized, what did you do in the congregation? Did you like do anything like spiritual goals? I did
not ever become a regular pioneer, but I did do auxiliary pioneering. I did my absolute best to be the best Jehovah's Witness I could be. And I took it very seriously. I was oftentimes alone in school because of the ostracism. I was bullied, mainly from my religious beliefs. And it was a painful childhood. I don't remember much happy periods in my life growing up. It was always Jehovah came first. It didn't matter. Like even when I was sick, they still dragged me to the meetings. Like it was, I didn't really have a childhood. I was robbed of a childhood, I feel. When I was starting when I was about 13, I had a friend. Her name was Janice, and her father started molesting me. And that went on up until just after my baptism. And at the same time, there was a brother that I babysat for, and he asked me to spend the night with the child. It happened more than once, but this one particular time, and next thing I know, he's in bed with me, and he's groping me, and so these things were all happening at once. Like the two brothers, one was an elder, one was a minister, a servant, were molesting me, both of them, and then I'm trying to figure out that, I'm just coming of age, and I'm thinking if I get baptized, that Jehovah would be more happy with me and these things would stop. But it didn't. It just progressively got worse and worse. And I finally said to my father, I was trying to tell him what was going on, but I didn't quite say it in the right way, I guess. And he just jumped up off the table at the table. We were at dinner time, and he says, "Don't you ever talk like that about the brothers again." It's totally shut me up. So I just was like tossed about by not understanding why these things were happening when I was trying so hard to be a good Jehovah's Witness. I felt like Jehovah hated me, because if he loved me, why would he be allowing this to happen to me? And my friend's father, he eventually, he didn't get disfellowshipped when I told my story. It was like, basically you tell the elders, and you think they're going to do something for you. You think they're going to come back with, well, we've done this, we've done that, or, this situation's been handled. Nothing. Not a word. You've done, and you've bared your soul in front of all these men, and then you wait for some sort of a answer back. There's none. Back in those days, I didn't understand that there was this two-witness thing. But I could see that was the case, that there was not two witnesses or two witnesses too. And my sister is 10 years younger than me, and we went up she moved to Port Hardy, and we went up for her wedding. I was her bridesmaid, and he molested my sister while we were there. So and you know how, I mean, you sit in front of these panel of three men. My father was there, three men, and my accuser. And we're sitting at the dining room table, and I'm having to tell these men what had happened, and then they didn't do anything, and then he goes and abuses my sister. I really actually tried to block that part of my life out a whole lot, because it was a very painful period of time, and I thought baptism would cure it, because Jehovah was not loving to me. It was mean.
That's awful. Absolutely awful. Did nobody go to the police? Like, did your parents go to the police? Was it ever brought to something? Did you get therapy, counseling?
Nothing. Not a thing. Not a thing.
So it was just brushed under the carpet?
Brushed under the carpet, 100%. And when I did tell some people at the Kingdom Hall about it, I was advised that I should be quiet and not talk about it because it would be causing division. That was the word that they used, causing division. And I couldn't understand why. I didn't understand why I wasn't allowed to tell other people so that that they would be protected. My young mind, I couldn't make sense of it. You were basically told not to go to counseling. I was actually afraid of my school counselor because they had the name counselor. And of course, they'd call me down to the office certain times because I was exhibiting behaviors of somebody who was not well. And I felt like I couldn't even open my mouth to say what was really bothering me. I just had to cover up. So my parents moved from Vancouver to Ladner when I was about 17. And I had moved out on my own, but when they moved to Ladner, I went with them. And when we got to Ladner, my brother and I threw a really big party before the house got. My parents even moved in, like it was still empty, and one of those naughty parties that we did back in the 80s that you'd never get away with now. And the families from the Kingdom Hall in Ladner came, or the kids from the Kingdom Hall in Ladner and the surrounding areas all came, and that's where I met my soon-to-be husband. I actually started dating his brother first, and then ended up marrying him. Of course, as a Jehovah's Witness, you don't have sex before marriage, so it's a ridiculously short engagement. I think we moved in July, and I was married by October. And just as we were getting married, my husband's oldest brother, there's 9 kids in that family, 8 boys and 1 girl. Just as we're about to get married, his brother's going through this divorce, and in the custody battle, it came out that what my husband thought was his niece was actually his half-sister. His father, who was an elder when I met and married, we were both elders' children at the time. It had been covered up in the Jehovah's Witnesses for, the child was 15 when it came out. It happened in Ontario, so people back there knew, but they swept it all under the rug. Both of them got disfellowship, believe it or not. Like, she got disfellowship for abuse that had been going on, she told me, since she was 4. She can remember it as far back as 4. Interestingly enough, she's still a Jehovah's Witness, but the child, getting fragmented, the child is no longer a Jehovah's Witness and is a recovering addict. And she's always, it's a cycle with her. She's good, she's clean for a while, and then she falls off the wagon and she has to go into rehab again, and she's just a mess. And but the congregation in Ladner had no idea that he was a pedophile. No idea that the child was, and they were living in the same house. Had no idea that elder was a pedophile and had a baby with his own daughter. And my husband was number 6. So he was, he didn't know, the one that had the baby was number 2. They had a boy, girl, and then all boys after that. So he didn't know anything about it. The older ones had some clue. So after we were married, he just fell apart. then we go back to the pedophile, my ex-father-in-law. It comes time for these other people that he had sexually abused in Ontario before they moved out here. They came forward probably about 9 years ago now, and he ended up going to, like, after a long, there was quite a significant court case, and I could be wrong exactly on the number, but I think it was 19 counts of child sexual assault that he was actually up for. They did a DNA test on the daughter, the grandchild, whichever way you want to look at it, and he went to prison, and about 3 weeks ago he got out of prison, and he's in a halfway house in Surrey, probably going to the meetings. Probably the people don't know that he was even in jail, or it's probably just, I mean, he's in his 80s now, but I mean, people should know when there's a pedophile in their midst, I would think, but no, that'll be all swept under the carpet, you know it will. They won't, they'll cover it. I would like to go and warn them, but I think that's for another day. So I ended up divorced. Of course, you know, when they had I had the grounds for divorce, they told me that if I slept with him again, that I would be forgiving him. And I was shocked. I was like, I've just been through this. I just had a baby like days ago, and you're like warning me that if I sleep with my husband, that I'm forgiven him and I wouldn't have the grounds for divorce anymore. I thought that was really uncalled for. Like, it kind of like, it was one of those moments that, aha moments, that I realized it was in something I didn't want to be in. But I wasn't that smart at that time. So there's this woman at the Kingdom Hall, and she says to me, well, who's going to want you with 5 kids? And I was like, okay, well, who's going to want me with 5 kids? So this brother moved from Ontario out to Surrey, where I was living at the time. And he took an interest in me, and so at that point I did commit immorality or whatever. And so the elders had told me that if I married him, they wouldn't disfellowship me, but it was kept quiet, you know, that they wouldn't disfellowship me, they just privately reproved me. So I did that, and what a mistake that was. He ended up abusing my children. I mean, there's this one time, this is after I moved up here, up to Kelowna. I didn't go to too many meetings after I moved to Kelowna, but this few that I did go to, I wanted to show an elder's wife what he had done to my son. He had beat him with a shoe, and his whole back was black and blue. And so I catch her in the mother's room, and I show it to her, and I'm thinking that at that point they're going to say, you need to get him out of the house. Nope, I needed to be more submissive. I needed to, it was all my fault. And after a while, I used to call it, he put the elders on speed dial, because whenever I didn't do what he wanted me to do, he would call the elders, and they would come in, and I mean, it was insane the amount of times that I had elders at my house. One time he kicked himself, or put a wound on his shin, and told the elder that I did it to him. It was. So anyway, my kid's father, the 5 kids' father, come I let him stay in the house and visit the children when he was still, I just let him come and visit whenever, because I didn't believe in parental alienation, even though the elders wanted me to keep them away from my disfellowshipped ex-husband. I wasn't going to do that. So he decides that the fact that my kid's father is in the home, he puts a poster on the mailbox, child molester warning, and it's like describing my ex-husband, and because he by this time I've got him out of the house, right? He's not living with me, but he's upset that the father's visiting. So I mean, if you've seen this on your mailbox, what would you do? You'd call the police, and that's what somebody in the neighborhood did. So they come over to my house, and they asked me if I know anything about this poster, and I said, oh yeah, he had emailed it to me before he put it up. He threatened to put it up. So they come, and she said, the police officer says, can I see that email? And so when she looks in my email box, there's hundreds of emails, hundreds from him, all with Jehovah's gonna kill you, and you're gonna die at Armageddon, are you ready for the big one? Those were the subjects on them. And she's sees them all, and she's like, do you know this is criminal behavior? I'm like, no, because I've had no help from the elders. They've just basically told me to keep being more submissive and try and keep my kids in line. And so after that, it was out of my hands. They arrested him. And long story short, he got convicted of both threatening and conduct and harassment. Harassment's a misdemeanor, whereas threatening conduct falls under the criminal code. So he got convicted on that one. And all the while, the world is helping me out. Another incident that happened during that time period was it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm expecting my kids home. Instead, I get a knock at the door, and I open the door, and it's a police officer and a social worker. And they basically tell me that I have to have this, he had to be out of the house, or they were going to apprehend all my children. And of course, that wasn't an option for me. I knew exactly what I was going to do. It was like God, somebody finally came in and got him where I needed him out. And but there was always this nagging feeling in the back of my mind going, something's just not right. I mean, they say they do this, but what I'm experiencing is not the way they say it is. I'm a single mom of 5 children, and just, with a brand new baby, and a husband who's just, left me for another woman and drugs, and basically they just abandoned me. So, my daughter had gone to school with a mark under her eye, and they asked her how she got that mark on her eye, and she had told them that he had done it to her. So that's when they called in all my children, and they interviewed them all separately, They all gave the same story of the abuse, and that's when the social services came knocking at my door. And what a relief it was to actually have some backbone. They actually made me stay in a shelter for a couple of days because it was just, and no help, not anything except I needed to be better. I needed to be better. I needed to do better. Everything was me. And interestingly enough, he didn't get baptized while he was with me. He ended up getting baptized with his ankle bracelet on while serving his sentence. I mean, that's like a slap in the face. He'd been convicted of threatening conduct and harassing me. He's got no contact order. And they let him get baptized. I can't.
When you went to the elders and told them about things that were happening, what was usually the response to you? Or
it was almost like the 2-witness rule to me. It was like I said something, and then nothing was done. And it's not for a lack of trying. I really wanted to be heard. I really wanted somebody to say, you know, we're okay with you separating. We're okay with you, you know, not living together. But that was not to be. That. When I finally did start leaving, you know how the elders they come to do their shepherding calls or whatever, so they come and I'd let them in and they'd read me my scriptures or whatever, and then finally I didn't want that anymore. I thought it was like, this isn't helping my situation. So he went and told them that I was. This is in West Kelowna, so this is the second time he's done this. Accused me of committing immorality. So by then I didn't want to talk to the elders, but they kept coming, they kept phoning. I got call display and it came down to this one day. I opened my garage door, like that one over there, and it was like the walkway up to my house, like not the garage door, but the side door. And there they were standing there, and they're like, we want to talk. And I'm like, I don't want to talk. And well, you know what that means then? And I said, yeah, I guess so. Go do whatever you have to do. I just didn't want to have anything to do with them anymore. And so I'm assuming I've been disfellowshipped, but I'm assuming. And I have never regretted leaving. It's the best thing I ever did, and I'm glad I did it when I did it, so that I was able to do it before my children got indoctrinated. So they had basically a normal worldly kind of life growing up, and it's such a nice feeling to know that even though you don't agree with each other, you don't have to shun your children, or your children have to shun you. It's a really awesome feeling to have that freedom to be just who you were meant to be. My parents were hopeful that I would come back. My parents actually didn't cut me off right away. They still would come up and see the children and spend some time with me until it became known that I was an apostate, and then I was cut off completely. It's been about 10 years, I think, around. I have seen pictures. My dad looks really old, and I know my dad, I was his favorite child. I know it must be hurting him as much as it hurts me. It's just so, the shunning thing is just so unchristian. It's just so hard to even describe to somebody who, it's cruelty. And I miss I always like to say I miss my mom's potato salad, because, you know, that's what she'd always make to go to their little get-togethers and baby showers and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm forever hopeful that they'll wake up, but I know it's, you know, it's not likely, because they've invested so much time, they've given so much of their lives, that to even think for a moment that it's not the truth would probably just be too much for them to bear. So for that, my heart goes out to them.
So now that you're not a Jehovah's Witness anymore and you've left, I mean, you've gone through so much hardship. You're being shunned by your family and your friends that are Jehovah's Witnesses. Despite all those hardships and negative things in your life, what is something that you can say, or like, what are some experiences that you say are good in your life now that you're not a Jehovah's Witness?
Everything about my life has changed for the good. Just being able to wear whatever you want to wear, dress however you want to dress, piercings, tattoos, just being able to be you and not having to be somebody that you're put into a mold and supposed to be. It's so liberating. I have found family in my work family. I don't want to use the word blessed, but I guess you can use it, to have landed in a job where the people are family to me, and they look out for me and understand. I don't have to hide. It's just a far better life, being able to do the normal things that we were not able to do. From, you know, with my Jehovah's Witness husband, I was always forced to do things that I didn't want to do, and now I'm with somebody who basically I can't. I'm spoiled. Like, there's no. He sees us as equals. He doesn't lord anything over me. He treats me like I'm a goddess. It's just, it blows me away how there's so many good people out there. There is so many good people out there, way better than the ones that are your phony friends. Like just today, I was watching them go into the Kingdom Hall, and they were hugging each other, and I looked at it and I could just see that phony, you know, made up, we love each other kind of. It's plastic. Being a Jehovah's Witness is not a real life. It is, it's a deadly cult.
So did you want to show me some of your documents here you had from your court case with your ex-husband?
Yes. This was actually just for a period of from July to September. Of course, the criminal behavior had been going on for years, but he was only that was the only time frame that they used. They used some of his Jehovah's Witness subject lines, the big one.
And did any of the elders ever see any of these as proof?
I sent one elder this whole package, and I sent it to him because he was the worst. He was the one that he would run to first, and he would listen. So he asked for time off to go to the Kingdom Hall, and the judge says, "But you go straight to the church and straight back. You don't go and have coffee, okay?" With everybody down wherever they go. I know they do that, so don't do that.
Oh my goodness.
That's kind of funny.
But despite all of this, like, this is proof in the eyes of the court case. Right?
Yeah.
But yet, did the elders not see this as any validation for your story?
No, not at all. No, he got baptized. Well, with the Zykopus done, while serving a sentence for this. To me, it's just unbelievable. The lack of support in any which way, shape, or form that I got from the congregation. There was none. And in a way, I know that my parents know that, but in the end, you're disfellowshipped, you're cut off, I think if I had stayed quiet, the shunning wouldn't have been so bad as it is for me. But because I spoke out against it, and especially after that magazine article came out, it really, well, no contact for probably 10 years, and it hurts. It hurts a lot.
Yeah. No.
It's not natural.
No.